Hey everybody, welcome to the press. It's our Wednesday show. We're going to get you ready for everything that is not the Travelers Championship this week on the PGA Tour. We do have a pretty loaded slate once again this week. We've got the KPMG Women's PGA Championship out in Washington. We'll talk about that. We've got the KLM Open on the European Tour, DP World Tour. We've got LIV in Nashville at a place called the Grove. We've got two events that will not get a lot of time, but we'll talk about them at the end, which is the Korn Ferry Tour out in Oklahoma, and then the Champions Tour up in upstate New York at the Dick's Open. So let's start with the LPGA. They've got a major this week. It is the third major of the year, the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. The host this year is Sahali Golf Club, and Sahali last hosted this tournament 8 years ago. That was when Brooke Henderson won her, I believe, first major championships. I think she was, 18, 19 at the time. And she won in a playoff. I believe it was over Lydia Ko at that time. Now, she is positioned pretty well on the board here. Before we want to talk about the board, if you don't remember Sahali from 8 years ago or from even further back from that, when Vijay Singh won his first major championship there in 1998 at a PGA championship, Sahali's a Washington State golf course, quite hilly, lots of land movement, but also incredibly tight. I mean, like, real tight. Not big windows to work the ball. Straight ball is your friend. You're going to have to chip out sometimes. You're going to be forced to hit the driver. Nelly Korda talked about this a couple of different times in her news conference yesterday, basically saying there are a lot of holes in this golf course where normally you wouldn't want to hit driver, but because of the championship conditions and the length of the golf course, you have to, quote, sack up and hit driver. So that's what she's going to do. She's going to try to attack the golf course. That's what Brooke Henderson did. She hit driver, hit it straight, kept it in play. It's going to be a different kind of game this week compared to pretty much every other week everywhere else in championship golf. That's just the challenge of this place, is getting through the corridors and getting used to tight, almost claustrophobic windows. So, that all said, top of the table, Nelly Korda 8-1. She's missed her cut in the last two tournaments, U.S. Women's Open, and then again, their last start in Michigan at the Meyer LPGA Classic. Of course, there's some natural concern about that, like, hey, was she shell-shocked by the Women's Open, and now she's just not in good shape. She had a really rough first round at the Meyer, and then had an okay second round, but the damage had been done. Italia Titicul is 14-1. Ayaka Faru is 18-1. Rose Zhang, 25-1. Kind of like Rose here, because she has won on golf courses that can be perceived as a little bit tighter, maybe not this tight. She also played in the Pac-12, so she's played West Coast golf when she played collegiate golf. She probably has a little bit more experience on this than you might think. Lilia Vu is 25-1, I think is also a very interesting potential play here, because she just won. She made her first start since March last week and won in a playoff. She had no expectations of winning. She'd been dealing with an injury, a back issue, I believe, all year. And here she is, having come off a win. And I think that lack of number of starts this year has her at this price, which makes her a pretty reasonable price, I think, 25-1. Jin Young Ko, Brooke Henderson are 28-1. I don't think either are in particularly good form. Se Young Kim is 30-1. Well, I like quite a bit here if she can keep the ball in play. And that's a big if for her. She can get a little wild with the driver. Megan Kang, 30-1. I like a heck of a lot in this tournament. She won her one and only LPGA event in Canada on a golf course that is maybe not quite as tight as this one, but very similar looking. I think she's a great play this week. Hyuju Kim is also 30. Hannah Green is 30. I would be all over Hannah Green here at 30-1. Charlie Hall's 30-1. I don't think this really fits her game particularly well. Could prove me wrong, but I don't think it does. Janet Lin, 35-1 with Miyu Yamashita. Minji Lee, Lynn Grant, they're all 35-1. Maybe Minji, but again, how much scar tissue was there from the U.S. Women's Open? I don't know. I guess that's TBD, but that may be your only reason to not support her in these kind of major championships. Lynn Grant just won on the DP World Tour. She came from, 11 back on the final day to wind up winning the Scandinavian Mixed when Sebastian Soderberg vomited all over himself in the last couple of holes. I don't know that necessarily translates here, but that confidence is a good thing. I just think this golf course is too tight for her. Yuka Sasso is 40-1. The driving clinic that she put on in winning the U.S. Women's Open, but she's so streaky, and I don't know. It's so hard to kind of back. That's why she's at this price. She's not a consistent winner. When she wins big ones. Ronnie Yin, who is the defending champion here, is 40-1. Nasa Hataoka, 40-1. Actually, I think it could be a great play here. Allie Ewing, 40-1, has been playing pretty well. Played well at the U.S. Women's Open. Could be a sneaky pick. I think Nasa's a better player, but Allie Ewing is a very good player. Hey Ran Rue is 45-1, and then you just kind of start getting a little bit deeper than that, and we don't need to go through the whole board here. But I think Gabby Ruffles could be very interesting at 65-1. She won the U.S. Women's Am in a thriller at Woodmont, which is not too far from my home here in the D.C. area, and it's a tight golf course. I mean, it's not as claustrophobic as Sahali, but it was tight, firm, lots of bounces. I think she can handle it very well. Go down a little bit more. I really liked Leona Maguire last week, but didn't see enough there to kind of justify another bet. Same from Lydia Ko. I think she can play some tremendous golf here on a tighter golf course. She fared very well in Canadian Opens, which typically are not as wide open as other LPGA courses, so maybe, but she's 75-1, probably not in the best form. Allison Corpuz kind of interests me. Jennifer Kupcho kind of interests me. They're both 75-1. But again, Kupcho is almost unpredictable in terms of when she shows up, and Corpuz really hasn't been the same since winning the U.S. Women's Open. Do you think about Lexi Thompson at 90-1? She lost in the playoff last week. This is her farewell season. She seems to have put together some kind of prideful statement here about, hey, I'm not going to go out just being an also-ran. I'm going to give this thing a legitimate shot. Maybe she's worth looking at. If you want to try to draw a parallel that could be of interest here, you may want to try to draw one to the Amundi Evian Championship, which is also played on a very tight golf course, tough landing areas, a lot of cambered fairways, so the effective landing areas are very small. That could be a great place for a player like Georgia Hall or Albane Valenzuela. Throw in a Alexandra Forsterling, who's played great on the European Tour, that she could have that kind of comfort level, kind of playing a similar style event. Those are probably the players I would look at, and then beyond that, I don't think there's much worth looking at, but yeah, I guess that's up to you. But one other name I will throw out there, if you want a super mega sleeper, is Morgane Mathieu. She has been playing so well on the Ladies European Tour. I mean, tremendously well. No one knows who she is, but she did make the cut at the Meyer LPGA, and she finished in 5th at the ShopRite LPGA, which is a tight golf course. She's won on the Ladies European Tour recently. She is a good player. 300-1, super mega long shot. There's your look for this championship. All right, let's switch gears. We will go over to LIV. They are playing in Tennessee this week. That is their debut in this market. It says it's Nashville. It's just outside Nashville. Place called the Grove. So this is a place that hosted the Korn Ferry Tour for 3 years, I believe, before the venue decided they would have LIV, and then obviously lost their contract with the PGA Tour immediately. And they probably got paid way more by LIV than they were going to give for the PGA Tour. The same 54 players shown up. John Rahm is playing, from everything that we've heard, so I assume he is good enough to go. Maybe not great to go, but good enough to go. But he's 10-1. Bryson is 7.5-1. Joaquin Neiman's 8.5-1. Again, Rahm 10-1. Tyrrell Hatton 12-1, along with Taylor Gooch. Brooks Koepka's 14-1. Cam Smith is 16-1. Your 18s, Dean Burmester and Abe Answer, both been playing very well this year on this tour. Sergio 20-1, I think is worth a bet this week. Kudos to him for going through the qualifying process, getting into the Open, earning his way in, had himself a really nice Open. 20-1's worth a play, I think. Then you've got Patrick Reed, Louis Oosthuizen, Carlos Ortiz are all in 20-1. Ortiz won last time out. I had both of his major professional wins between the PGA Tour and LIV are in Houston, so this isn't Houston. No, thank you. I would bet him in Mexico as well. He's played well in Mayakoba. Dustin Johnson, man, the mighty have fallen, 28-1. Richard Bland 30-1 with Paul Casey, Mark Leishman, who's been playing very well recently. Lucas Herbert's 30-1. I think Mark Leishman may be worth a look here. David Puig 40-1 made the cut to make the Spanish Olympic team. Kudos to him. I mean, he has his schedule where he can't earn world ranking points when he plays these 14 weeks for LIV. And then he goes and plays elsewhere, plays Asian Tour events, tries to qualify for majors, does those things. He is a good player. And he doesn't get enough respect in this betting market, but I don't think he's too far away if this tour continues to exist from being a dominating big name play, like the first legitimate developed superstar from the early stages of professional golf through LIV Golf. David Puig is a great player. Cam Trigali is 40-1 as well, along with Adrian Meronk. Tommy Peters, Sebastian Munoz, Kevin Na, Anirban Lahiri are all 50-1. I don't know how Kevin Na is 50-1. That just doesn't, or Sebastian Munoz for that matter. I don't know how either of those guys are. But this again, we talked about this before. This is a 10-person tour, and you can bet that 10-person tour how you would like, but reaching much beyond really 40-1, I think is asking a lot, given who's at the top and how often they contend. Maybe you want to think about Eugenio Chikara, who just played in the U.S. Open, got a little exposure to a different kind of level of professional golf in terms of difficulty. Maybe there's something to take from that. I don't know. I don't think so. I think that's probably the extent of it for me. I don't think I would go beyond 40-1. Other than that, and even 40-1 is Puig only, not Tringali or Adrian Meronk. So that's that tournament. Let's look into 30 seconds on the Compliance Solutions Championship, which is a horrible name for a golf tournament, but it is the Korn Ferry Tour stop this week. They are at the Jimmy Austin Golf Course at the University of Oklahoma. This is, I believe, the second year for this tournament. This very much is a tour right now that is on momentum. Tim Vieding had a great week at the U.S. Open, played very well. So did Frankie Sapp in the third. Isaiah Salinda played well. Sam Bennett played well. The question I think I have is, can those guys deal with coming back to... the pressure of a U.S. Open is different than the pressure of the Korn Ferry Tour. It just is. I'm not saying that they are irreconcilably different. You can't do one with, but one's much more difficult than the other. Tim Vieding's 20-1. You got Frankie Sapp at 30-1. You got Sam Bennett at 30-1. You got Isaiah Salinda at 50-1. Those guys are kind of interesting. Taylor Dixon just won for the second time this year. He's 50-1. This tour is very much you build momentum, and that you have momentum for 3 weeks. And if you know that going in, if you have a great 3 weeks, you've probably got a card. Tim Vieding had a great 2 weeks, went back to back. Frankie Sappin's had a great couple of weeks. He's going to get a card. You've got Taylor Dixon, we just mentioned, 2 wins. He's going to get a card. Harry Higgs, he's not here this week. Oh, actually is here this week. I didn't see his name on the roster. He is here this week. He's got 2 in a row. He's got a card. All these guys are in business. So how much are you motivated to go get a third win if you're one of those guys with 2 wins we just mentioned? I don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting question, I think. But if you look at the guys out here, William Mal's been playing great, 28-1, I think is an interesting play. Sam Bennett maybe on the cusp. Maybe take some motivation from playing in the U.S. Open. 30-1, I think, is worth a look there. Kevin Velo playing good again, 30-1. You're going to have a lot of guys at 30-1, just kind of stack there. Frankie Sappin's 30-1. Maybe you want to look at Quade Cummins, who continues to play well on this tour, 40-1. Christopher Ventura's at 40-1. I don't even think they're... I like Christopher Ventura's game, but I don't think they're particularly comparable. How is Christopher Ventura on the same number as Harry Higgs? I just don't get that. Salinda at 50-1, I think, is worth a look. I'll point out right away, Christo Lamprecht, he's turning pro. This is his opportunity to make a quick splash by being one of the best amateur golfers in the world. He gets this opportunity to go play out of college, play some starts. Not free rolling, right? You still want to try to earn your card. You don't want to be on this tour much longer than you have to be. At 50-1, I kind of have a feeling he might come out of here and do something. Might be worth even a look on a top 10 or a top 5 bet. They only have top 5 at DraftKings, but if you could find a top 10, might be like 3 or 4-1, might be worth a look there. Other than that, I think this is very much a momentum tour, so I'm going to stick with the guys who have momentum, and we'll just leave that otherwise alone. The Dick's Open up in upstate New York at Enjoy Golf Course. It's used to host something used to be called the BC Open, and when I was younger, when I first started watching golf, I thought that meant they were in British Columbia. And then when I realized it wasn't in British Columbia, I thought, okay, well, what is this? And they have the logo, and it was like a caveman. And I was like, oh, does it mean the Before Christ Open? And that wasn't it either. I still don't really know what BC meant back then. If you know, you can tell me. But when they lost the PGA Tour opposite field event, I think it was against the British Open, the Dick's Open became a senior tour event, and it's done really, really well. So, Patrick Harrington and Ernie Els, two best players in the tour, are 5.5-1 each. Worth a look, I think, especially Ernie playing great golf. Stephen Ames is 12-1, Longer 14-1. Greg Chalmers is 16-1. I think that's insane. Greg Chalmers, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, was barely getting any starts on the tour. He Monday qualifies for the third time to get into this thing, and he's 16-1. That's amazing to me. He's unbettable at that number, but I love Greg Chalmers. Tung Chai JD is 20-1. Doug Barron, I want to point out, 20-1. He has played very well here and won here, and he's playing great golf. 20-1, I think, is a great price for him. Maybe someone like a Thomas Bjorn at 30-1 could be 30-1. Oh, he's 35-1. Excuse me, misread the table there. Mike Weir, 40-1, I think is worth a look at that number. And that's probably it. David Duval showed a couple of things last times I've seen him play, but 100-1 is a little bit much. Scott Dunlap could do some damage here, so could Bob Estes at 100-1, but bet that at your own risk. Now, we'll end up on the KLM Open, which is the Dutch Open. This is a place called the International, which I don't really have as much awareness of. The field is okay. It's kind of your standard DP World Tour field. Rasmus Højgaard's 14-1 along with Matt Wallace. Bernd Wiesberger 16-1. Wiesberger's been playing better. He just putts so terribly. Tom McKibben 18-1. Getting a great opportunity to play the U.S. Open. Might be tired. Sebastian Soderberg 18-1. Unbettable because of what happened at the Scandinavian Mixed. I can't trust him until he kind of shows he's maybe out of that funk. Laurie Cantor 18-1. Maybe worth a look. Richard Manziel's 22. Takumi Kanaya is 30-1, along with Joost Luiten, hometown or home country guy. You've got Guido Migliozzi at 30-1, along with Alex Fitzpatrick, who I think is worth a bet here at 30-1. I do like Romain Langasque at 40-1, and beyond that, I think you're probably reaching a little bit. Maybe a Matteo Manacero at 80-1. Maybe that's worth a consideration. That's just enticing enough of a price to burn $5 or $10 on him or something like that. But this tour, I think, is particularly hard to bet. I mean, it's not as much of a 10-person tour as LIV is, but there aren't as many random winners so far this year. At least it doesn't feel that way compared to maybe other years, especially kind of in the COVID era. All right, that's going to do it for us for this week. Hopefully you had a great winning week last week at the U.S. Open. You got a little free roll here on some fun this week. I do want to pass along one bet I saw from, I forget where, but I saw online that I think is really good for the travelers if you want to just put $5-10 on it, or $1, whatever your unit size is. But just a little sprinkle on the dual forecast for the travelers of Patrick Cantlay and Sam Burns, 1-2. It could be in any order for 350-1. I normally don't recommend those kinds of bets because I'm not trying to get you to do kind of weird stuff that has very, very, very low likelihood of happening. But I saw that, and I thought, man, that's interesting. I could be in on that play. So, Cantlay, Burns, dual forecast, dollar on it at 350-1. Maybe you have some fun with it come Sunday, but that might be worth looking at there. A couple dual forecasts that could be interesting depending on how you do it. But that one piqued my interest at that high of a price. We'll be back next week with another slate of shows. We're going to get into the part of the PGA Tour season where we've got a chance for some interesting values because we're going to have a couple of events, 2, 3, 4 weeks worth of events outside of the Scottish Open and the Open Championship. We have Oppo events. We have the Rocket Mortgage. We've got the Quad Cities. We've got the 3M Open. All these events where we have a chance, not going to say we're going to, but we have a chance of identifying long shot winners that are 150, 201 or greater, kind of like we had earlier in the year, and go from there. Leave me a comment on your favorite podcasting service. Leave us a 5-star review. Helps. Join Golf Newsnet for $40 a year or $10 for the week at golfnewsnet.com. Email me, Ryan at thegolfnewsnet.com, Twitter threads, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Ryan Ballingy. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you next week on The Press.